The ceremonial blade stopped 3 inches from Marcus Chen's throat. "You dare present this, human, as a tribute candidate?" High Counselor Vareth's voice cut through the grand hall like cracked ice. Around the obsidian pillars, 200 Keth'ari nobles fell silent, their silver eyes fixed on the scene unfolding before the crimson throne. Marcus kept his breathing steady. He'd survived worse. The mining collapse on Europa that took his crew. The 3 years in a refugee camp. The slow crawl back to something resembling a life. A blade at his throat was almost nostalgic. The trade delegation offered him. Ambassador Silas replied, her tone carefully neutral. Earth's contribution to the bonding trials. As per the new alliance terms, Earth sends us their garbage. Vareth sheathed his blade with contempt. A species barely capable of faster-than-light travel, and they insult us with this laborer. From her throne, Empress Kaelith watched without expression. Marcus had done his research on the journey here. 3 weeks of studying Keth'ari customs, their rigid hierarchy, their ancient traditions. He knew she was considered damaged goods among her own people. 32 cycles old and unbonded. In a culture where females hunted their mates by age 20, she was an anomaly. A failure. She didn't look like a failure to him. She looked exhausted. "The human will be processed with the other candidates," Kaelith said finally. Her voice carried no emotion. "The trials begin at moonrise. If he survives the first hunt, we will assess his suitability." Vareth laughed. "He won't survive the first hour, Radiance. The forests of Keth'var have claimed warriors twice his size." Marcus spoke for the first time. "Then I guess I'll have to be faster than I am big." The silence that followed was absolute. Candidates did not speak unbidden. Candidates certainly did not speak with such casual irreverence before the Empress herself. Kaelith's silver eyes met his. Something flickered there. Surprise, perhaps. Or curiosity. "Take him to the preparation chambers," she ordered. "And Counselor Vareth? The next time you draw a blade in my throne room without permission, I will have your hand." The preparation chambers were carved from living rock, deep beneath the palace. Marcus sat on a stone bench while a servant, a younger Keth'ari female with nervous hands, applied ceremonial markings to his arms. "You should not have spoken," she whispered. "The Empress. She does not tolerate disrespect." "I didn't disrespect her." Marcus held still as the cold pigment traced patterns on his skin. "I disrespected Vareth." "There's a difference." "To an outsider, perhaps." The servant paused. "Why are you here, human? Truly?" Marcus considered the question. The official answer was simple. Earth needed this alliance, and the Keth'ari demanded participation in their bonding trials as proof of commitment. Someone had to volunteer. Someone expendable. The real answer was more complicated. "I had nothing left to lose," he said quietly. "Sometimes that's the only qualification that matters." The servant finished her work and stepped back. "In our culture, the female hunts. She chooses, she claims. A male who cannot evade her is considered weak. A male who evades her too long is considered cowardly. The balance." She shook her head. "It is difficult, even for our own people. And the Empress, has she hunted before?" The servant's eyes widened. "We do not speak of, I'm asking." A long pause. Then, barely audible. "She has hunted 7 times. 7 times. Her chosen prey escaped the boundaries before she could claim them. They preferred exile to bonding with her." The servant's voice dropped further. "They say she is cursed. That any male she pursues will find only death or dishonor." Marcus absorbed this. 7 rejections. In a culture where the hunt was sacred, where a female's worth was measured by her ability to claim a mate, 7 failures would be devastating. "That's why they sent me," he realized aloud. "Not to succeed. To fail publicly. To humiliate her further." The servant said nothing, but her silence was confirmation enough. A horn sounded in the distance. The trials were beginning. Marcus stood, rolling his shoulders. The markings on his arms seemed to pulse with their own light. "One more question. In the hunt, is there a rule that says the prey can't want to be caught?" The servant stared at him as though he'd spoken in tongues. No, cher. No such rule exists. But why would any male? Tell me something." Marcus moved toward the chamber door. "When the Empress hunts, does she hunt to claim? Or does she hunt to prove something to all those people who already decided she'd fail? I don't understand." Marcus smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been written off before, by supervisors, by rescue teams, by an entire species that saw him as expendable. "Then I guess we'll both find out." The forests of Keth'var were nothing like Earth's woods. The trees were crystalline, their branches refracting the three moons' light into cascading rainbows that would have been beautiful if Marcus weren't running for his life. Not from the Empress. From the other candidates. There were 12 of them in total, 10 Keth'ari males of noble blood, 1 Vreth diplomat's son, and Marcus. The rules were clear: survive in the forest for 3 days. The females would begin hunting at dawn of the second day. Any male who crossed the boundary markers before being claimed was disqualified. Any male who harmed another candidate was executed. What the rules didn't mention was the informal arrangement among the Keth'ari males. The human goes first. Lord Keth'rin had announced 2 hours into the trial. We drive him toward the northern boundary. He crosses. He's eliminated. Then we focus on survival. Marcus had slipped away before they could organize. His years in the mines had taught him how to move quietly, how to find the paths others missed. The crystalline forest was disorienting, but patterns emerged if you watched long enough. The way certain branches bent toward water. The subtle warmth that indicated geothermal vents. He found a cave system around midnight, small, easily defensible, with a freshwater spring deeper inside. He drank, rested, and waited. By morning, he'd mapped 3 escape routes and identified which plants were edible. The Keth'ari candidates were still searching for him in the upper forest, their frustrated calls echoing through the crystal trees. Dawn of the second day arrived with a sound like thunder. The hunting horns. Marcus climbed to a vantage point and watched. The females entered the forest in a ceremonial formation, each wearing the colors of their house. They moved with predatory grace, their silver eyes scanning the terrain. And at their head, unmistakable even at this distance, was Empress Kaelith. She wore hunting leathers instead of ceremonial robes, her white hair bound back in warrior's braids. She carried no weapons. The hunt was about skill, not killing. But she moved like someone who didn't need them. The formation split. Each female had clearly chosen her target in advance. Marcus watched them fan out through the forest, purpose in every step. Kaelith came north. Toward him. He could run. The other males certainly were. He could hear their panicked movements through the crystal branches, the crack of their passage as they fled before the hunters. The smart move was to evade, to use his knowledge of the terrain to stay 1 step ahead. Instead, Marcus sat down on a flat rock and waited. It took her 2 hours to find him. She emerged from the crystalline undergrowth like a ghost, silent despite her size. The Keth'ari were tall, nearly 7 feet, and Kaelith was tall even by their standards. She stopped 20 paces away, her silver eyes narrowing. "You are not running. Should I be?" Kaelith circled him slowly, assessing. "Every male I have ever hunted has run, the wise ones at least, the wise ones who escaped and chose exile over you." Marcus kept his voice mild. "That kind of wisdom?" She stopped moving. "You speak boldly for prey. I'm not prey." He stood, facing her directly. "I'm here voluntarily. Different thing. The distinction is irrelevant. The hunt is the hunt. If I claim you, you are bound to me by law. I know. If you resist, I am within my rights to subdue you. Painfully if necessary. Also know that." Kaelith's composure cracked slightly. "Then why are you not running?" Marcus considered how to answer. The truth was complicated, part pragmatism, part calculation, part something else he hadn't fully examined yet. But the core of it was simple enough. "Because I saw how they looked at you in that throne room, like you were already a joke. Like the outcome was predetermined." He met her silver gaze without flinching. "I know what that feels like, Empress. Being written off before you even begin. And I decided that if I was going to be sacrificed to your failure, I'd rather do it on my own terms. You pity me." Her voice had gone cold. "No. Pity is for people who've given up." Marcus took a step toward her, a breach of hunt protocol that made her tense. "You haven't given up. 7 times they ran from you. And you're still out here. Still hunting. Still fighting for something they've already decided you can't have. You know nothing of Keth'ari ways. I know shame when I see it. I know exhaustion. I know what it costs to keep standing when everyone expects you to fall. Another step. What I don't know is why you keep hunting males who don't want to be caught. Why you keep playing a game that's rigged against you." Kaelith's hand shot out, grabbing his throat, not squeezing but holding. The speed was inhuman. Marcus didn't resist. "I could snap your neck," she said quietly. "It would be ruled an accident. A human too fragile for our ways. You could give me one reason not to." Marcus raised his hand slowly and placed it over hers where it gripped his throat. "Not pulling. Not fighting. Just holding. Because you're tired of killing things that were never really alive to begin with. Relationships. Hope. Your own expectations." His voice was steady, despite her grip. And I'm the first person in a long time who's looked at you like you're more than a ceremonial burden to be avoided. Her hand trembled. Just slightly. What do you want, human? I want you to catch me. He let the words hang in the air. Really catch me. Not because I couldn't run, but because I chose not to. Because for once in your life, someone wanted to be yours. Kaelith's grip loosened. She didn't let go, but the killing pressure faded. You're either the bravest creature I have ever met, she said slowly, or the most foolish. Probably both. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. We humans are complicated like that. She released his throat and stepped back, her expression unreadable. The claiming requires 3 days of successful pursuit. The ceremony requires you to yield willingly at the end. You understand this. I read the briefing materials. All 300 pages. Then you know that a claiming bond is permanent. Unbreakable by any law of the Empire. Yes? And you still? Ask me again in 3 days. Marcus gestured toward the forest. For now, I believe you're supposed to be hunting me. It would look suspicious if you caught me in 2 hours. Kaelith stared at him for a long moment. Then, impossibly, a slight smile curved her lips. Run, then, human. And try to make it interesting. Marcus ran. By the 3rd day, Marcus understood why the Keth'ari revered the hunt. It wasn't about dominance. Not really. It was about communication. Every evasion, every pursuit, every moment of tension between hunter and hunted revealed something. How you ran showed whether you were proud or desperate. How you hid showed whether you were clever or cowardly. How you eventually yielded or didn't showed what you valued more than survival. Kaelith had tracked him across 30 miles of crystalline forest. She'd nearly caught him twice, once at the waterfall where he'd miscalculated the current, once in the cave system when she'd anticipated his escape route. Both times he'd slipped away by inches. Both times he'd seen something in her eyes that might have been respect, or might have been frustration. With the Keth'ari it was hard to tell. Now, on the final morning, he crouched in the hollow of a fallen crystal tree and listened to her approach. The hunt would end at sunset. If he evaded her until then without crossing the boundary, he would be, what? A successful candidate? A failure? The rules hadn't been designed for someone who wanted to be caught. I know you're in there, Marcus. Her voice came from directly above him. He looked up to find her perched on the tree's crystalline trunk, silver eyes gleaming in the dawnlight. That's the first time you've used my name. You've earned it. She dropped down beside him, graceful as a cat. 3 days. No other male has ever lasted 3 days against me. To be fair, no other male was actively trying to let you win while also making it look convincing. Kaelith laughed, a surprising sound, warm and unguarded. It transformed her face. You are ridiculous, so I've been told. Marcus shifted to face her. They were close now, closer than they'd been since the first confrontation. He could see the exhaustion in her face, the scratches on her arms from days of hunting. She hadn't slept properly, he realized. None of the hunters did during the trial. But there was something else too. Something lighter. They're watching, she said quietly. The observation drones. Recording everything for the court. I assumed. If you yield to me now, there will be no doubt. The claiming will be witnessed by the entire Empire. There will be no questioning its legitimacy, no challenging the bond. She paused. But there will also be no escape, no annulment, no, Kaelith. He reached out and took her hand. It was the first time he'd touched her deliberately, and she went very still. I read the briefing materials, remember? The briefing materials did not cover the reality of life bonded to an empress that half the court considers cursed. No. They covered the political situation in the Keth'ari Empire. The succession crisis. The fact that you have no heirs and your cousin is actively plotting to challenge your claim. The pressure you're under to produce a bondmate, or be declared unfit to rule. He squeezed her hand gently. I know what I'm walking into. Her expression flickered. You knew all of this. And you still? I knew all of this and I thought, here's someone fighting alone against a system designed to crush her. Here's someone who's been told her whole life that she's broken, that she can't do the one thing her culture values most. Marcus met her eyes. I've been that person, Kaelith. After the mine collapse. After I lost everyone. I was nobody's first choice for anything. I was expendable, disposable, written off. And now? Now I'm choosing to be someone's first choice. Even if nobody expected it. Especially because nobody expected it. Kaelith's hand tightened on his. You are an impossible creature, Marcus Chen. In her culture, you hunt your mate, he said quietly. I let her catch me. The words hung between them like a promise. That. Kaelith's voice cracked slightly. That is not how the tradition is meant to work. Maybe it's how it should work. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. The hunt isn't really about capture, is it? It's about finding someone worth chasing. Someone who sees you running toward them and doesn't flinch. She stared at him as though seeing him for the first time. Then, slowly, she brought her other hand to his face. Her palm was cool against his cheek, her touch almost tentative. You would bind yourself to me, truly, knowing what it will cost you. What will it cost me? Your world. Your species. Your freedom. You would be consort to an empress, caught in politics you barely understand, surrounded by people who will hate you for what you represent. And what do I represent? Change. Her thumb traced his cheekbone. Hope. The possibility that maybe I am not as broken as they have always told me. Marcus turned his head and kissed her palm. You're not broken. You were just waiting for someone brave enough to stay. The claiming ceremony was simple by Keth'ari standards. Kaelith spoke the ancient words in her language, her voice carrying across the forest clearing where the drones hovered and transmitted to every screen in the Empire. She described his evasion, his cunning, his strength. She described his choice to stop running. Then she asked him the formal question. Do you yield to me willingly, knowing that this bond cannot be severed, that your life becomes mine and mine becomes yours? Yes, Marcus said, loud enough for every drone to capture. I yield. She pulled him close and pressed her forehead to his, the Keth'ari mark of claiming. Her skin was cool, smooth, trembling slightly with emotion she couldn't quite hide. Mine, she whispered, so softly only he could hear. Yours, he agreed. And somewhere in the palace, Marcus knew, Counselor Verith was watching his carefully laid plans crumble to dust. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the balcony of the Imperial Chambers, watching the 3 moons rise over the capital city. Below, the streets were filled with celebration. The Empress's bonding anniversary, already becoming a festival day. You're thinking too loudly again. Kaelith joined him at the railing, her hand finding his with the ease of long practice. In the months since the claiming, they had learned each other's rhythms, the silences and sounds, the touches and distances. It had not been easy. There had been assassination attempts, political crises, moments when the weight of an entire empire seemed determined to crush them both. But they had survived. Together. I'm thinking about the council session tomorrow, Marcus admitted. Verith's faction is pushing for the mining rights bill again. They're trying to use Earth's involvement as leverage. Let them try. Kaelith leaned her head against his shoulder. My consort has proven remarkably adept at political maneuvering. Something about growing up in difficult circumstances, I'm told. Flattery won't get you out of the treaty negotiations. It was worth attempting. She smiled, and it was the real smile now, the one she only showed him. You know they're calling you the willing prey in the lower courts. It's becoming a romantic ideal. Young males are actually volunteering for the trials now, hoping to be chosen by females who were previously considered unsuitable. Marcus laughed. I started a trend? You started a revolution. She turned to face him, her silver eyes soft in the moonlight. The old ways said that strength was in flight, in making the hunter prove herself worthy. You showed them that strength can also be in standing still, in choosing. I just did what made sense to me, and in doing so you changed an empire. She cupped his face in her hands, the same gesture from their first real conversation, but tender now instead of threatening. You changed me. You changed yourself. Marcus covered her hands with his. I just gave you permission to stop running too. Kaelith kissed him then, slow and deep, the way she'd learned he preferred. The way she'd learned she preferred too, though admitting it had taken time. When she pulled back, her forehead rested against his. The ambassador from Earth arrives next week, she said quietly. They're sending a formal delegation to discuss expanded alliance terms. I heard. They will see you. Their expendable volunteer, now consort to the Keth'ari Empress. Standing at my side as an equal. Is that going to be a problem? For them, perhaps. Her smile turned sharp. For us, it will be a statement. That humans are not expendable. That this alliance is not charity or condescension. That Earth offered someone willing to sacrifice everything for connection, and the Keth'ari Empire was wise enough to recognize his worth. Marcus thought about the man he'd been a year ago, broken, grieving, with nothing left to lose. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, to the arms of an empress, to the heart of an alien civilization, to a life he couldn't have imagined. You know what I've learned, he said slowly. Living here, being part of this, tell me. That being caught isn't about losing. It's about finding something worth stopping for. He pulled her closer, breathing in her familiar scent. I spent years running from my past. Running from pain, from loss, from any chance of being hurt again. Then I let you catch me, and I realized... Realized what? That some traps are just homes you haven't recognized yet. Kaelith made a small sound, half laugh, half sob. In the months of their bonding, Marcus had learned that she rarely cried. The Keth'ari considered it weakness. But with him, in private, she had begun to allow herself these moments of vulnerability. "My impossible human," she murmured against his neck. "You're human," he corrected gently. "Always." Below them, the celebration continued. Somewhere in the palace their enemies plotted and schemed. The universe remained vast and complicated and dangerous. But here, on this balcony, under 3 alien moons, 2 people who had both been written off as failures held each other close. And for the first time in either of their lives, they both felt like they had finally won.